Anyway, I'm done with Sonic for this year. Hopefully they don't suddenly release or announce a new game that I can actually play, Sega, within the next few months. I need a break of that blue rat.
I need a break of that blue rat.
So, that was a fucking lie. The 2D Sonic games are some of the most beloved games in the franchise, right down to being able to pretend that a 2D game is 3D and proudly proclaim it's where Sonic found its footing in 3D after a long and arduous journey. But really, outside of the original Sonic 1 through Knuckles, isn't it weird that we never properly got a Sonic the Hedgehog 4? And no, I'm not talking about that dumpster fire that was Sonic 4 as we truly imagined it. Like, considering spin-offs like Sonic Blast or the Sonic and Tails series or Knuckles Chaotix, Triple Trouble, nothing really ever hit that same sweet spot. I mean, not until Mania, but, like, that's cheating. And while I can't find the interview, I did recently come across a statement by Yuji Naka from back around 2002 that Sonic Advance was internally seen as Sonic 4, and that's just fucking bullshit. Right now that's a source, just trust me bro, so take my word for it, or don't, I don't really care. But after 1995, Sonic Team lost their touch at making 2D games. Like, I don't know if it was due to staff leaving after Sonic and Knuckles, or the lack of proper 2D mainline titles before the jump to 3D in 98, leaving them rusted. But until 2017 Sonic Mania, there really wasn't a real Sonic 4. Some people consider the Advance trilogy as continuations of the classics. Some people see Rush as a continuation. I say, they're all fucking wrong, because all 5 of those games are essentially their own take of the formula introduced by Sonic 2 and not building off of Sonic 3K. Hell, most of them aren't even that good, but that's an opinion that can get you fucking gutted. So to start off the new year, right, I decided to come out of my hypersleep while waiting for Like a Dragon 8 and Persona 3 Reload to talk about my favorite subject in the world, Sonic the fucking Hedgehog. But before we start, I want to explain what I mean when I say this isn't a continuation of Sonic 3K. Now, for the uninitiated, or just those that don't care, any 2D Sonic game looks the same. It's Sonic, running through hills and slopes and loops and collecting 7 emeralds and beating an X-shaped bastard. But going from Sonic 91 to Sonic and Knuckles, the games kept improving on each other. Increased level sizes, better exploration, better movesets, all to keep you playing and replaying the games to get better and faster. So when I say that until Sonic Mania there wasn't a proper continuation of Sonic 3K, there are real reasons. Like, just take a look at the combined size of Green Hill, the size of Emerald Hill, and Angel Island. Notice the stark fucking difference in size. Sonic 1 had you collect emeralds by collecting 50 rings and getting to the end of the first 2 acts of a zone. 6 emeralds, 6 zones, of which only up to the 5th lets you collect emeralds, meaning you have a total of 10 chances in the game to get every emerald, giving you a total of 4 retries in special stages that can be very, very janky and annoying to traverse. Sonic 2 changes this up by making special stages enterable via the checkpoints in the stages when you run past them with 50 rings. Meaning, if you know the layout to Emerald Hill, you can, in fact, get all 7 emeralds in the first 2 acts of the game, meaning you have up to 9 stages where you can enjoy playing a Super Sonic. Sonic 3 changes this up again by removing the ring requirement, having you find giant rings hidden around each act. While usually maybe 3 to 4 giant rings are in an act, and some require specific characters like Knuckles. This encourages exploration, and once again, invites an incentive to find the quickest route to getting all 7 emeralds, 14 if you tagged on Sonic and Knuckles. Also, special shout out to Sonic CD, because even that game already changed up how you can get the best ending. The game enforces exploration by its time travel gimmick and having essentially 4 versions of a stage to explore, with new routes depending on which time period you're in. The special stages are still the same as Sonic 1's 50 rings at the end of an act, but for people who are too cool for school, you can run around a stage to find robot transporters in the past and secure a true end that way. This also lets you see the good future of the zones you're currently in before you have all the time stones. Even the special stages themselves became progressively improved upon, but yet for some reason, everybody ignores Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and keeps ripping off the half-pipes from Sonic 2 despite being the worst fucking special stage in existence in the actual 2D games. Don't even get me started on the 3D ones. It's also the little things. I've briefly talked about it before, but Sonic 3K introduced act transitions, where after you beat a mini-boss in Act 1, and the stage clears screen past, you just continue where you left off, making the stages feel actually connected. You aren't just teleported into a whole ass different act, and it's great. The same for zone transitions, showing a small cutscene of how the characters get to another stage, something as simple as being thrown off a bridge, or like flying over to another part of the island. It makes the game feel properly connected. It makes it feel like a proper lived-in area. Really, in many ways, 2D Sonic was slowly but surely becoming more and more like a Metroidvania. And really, the more I think about it, how the hell do we not have a proper Metroidvania Sonic game yet? But I'll come back to that with another video. But see how they learned from each game and built upon the foundation. So then why is it that it wasn't until a team of Sonic fans over 20 years later that we got a proper follow-up to what most people consider the best 2D Sonic game? It's because nobody fucking understands the Sonic should play, except those fucking weirdos dedicated to cracking the IP over their knee. Dimps made bad to mid 2D games. I like Sonic Rush Adventure, but that's mostly nostalgia, and I'm not gonna even pretend otherwise. They're filled to the brim with weird level design that goes against its own incessant need to speed you through with speed boosters, but I can understand the design philosophy behind putting traps and trip-ups in the stage, which is to advocate for replaying and getting better and better so you're not hitting them. But don't even get me started on its dumbass emerald hunting in the form of chow, or special rings, or keys, or whatever else they fucking concocted to increase playtime. This is something I also wondered about with Sonic Heroes. Why do these modern games have special stages? I get that nostalgia is a hell of a drug, but by this point, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 had Emerald just be around without special stages. Not to mention, Shadow and Unleashed continued this. Heroes, according to Izuka, was a new direction to bring in new fans, so why bring back special stages? And why did these bleed into the fucking 2D games? And honestly, I wouldn't mind if they weren't also fucking bad! Sonic Advance's skydiving, which is probably the best out of all three. The depth perception can fuck you up badly, but it's not too bad. Also, you only have to do it with one character. Unlike Sonic Advances 2, which are god-awful. They're repetitive and too fucking long. You can't exit them early by hitting the ring cap. No. You're just running around for 3 minutes while Zero from Sonic Adventure 1, who somehow came back from the dead, chases you. And that makes my big boy thumbs hurt for some reason. I'm not sure. So, the worst part is you have to do that with every character. There are 5 of them. 6? I don't remember. I don't like that game. Advance 3 is alright. Just more of the same, except now horizontal instead of vertical ring collection. It's awful. It's fine. I don't even know anymore. I do want to give a special shout out to the special stage hunt of Sonic Rush and Rush Adventure. With the first game, they put the special stage gates near ways to increase your boost bar so you can often have more than one attempt. Plus, the moment you get it, even if you game over, you still have the emerald. Which is great, because if it isn't fucking bottomless pits or death traps killing me, it's the god-awful boss design of Sonic Rush. Also, Rush Adventure's Johnny Hunt is probably the best special stage gimmick in any Dims game. It incentivizes you to upgrade your vehicle, so I like that. I like that a lot. That's a good way of doing it. What was this video about? My whining about special stages and why they shouldn't be put into modern style games aside, like the above mentioned list, there's really a short checklist of what makes something a follow-up to Sonic 3K or not for me. Big levels with a focus on exploration that does allow for backtracking. Level and act transitions that make the zone and general game world feel like it's connected and not just a bunch of different subspaces. Acts are different enough from each other in terms of backgrounds or tile sets, although this was mostly utilized in Mania, which is also a great example of continuing to build on the previous installments. However, Sonic 3K also does this with some stages having no differences like Carnival Night and Mushroom Hill, while stages like Sendopolis and Lava Reef have entirely different Act 1s and Act 2s. A good chunk of stages, even with Sonic 3K split, the Mega Drive games go from 6 proper zones to 10 and then 13. Mini-bosses in Act 1 and a big boss at the end of Act 2. Pretty self-explanatory. Listen, I'm not even gonna pretend to know the ins and outs of what makes a 2D Sonic game a 2D Sonic game. But I've been in this game long enough to develop a gut for it. And that list is what my gut tells me makes a game a continuation of the Sonic formula from Sonic 3K. And none of the Dims games followed this list in one way or another. Now, you might argue, isn't it a little anal to have this preconceived list about what does or doesn't make a game whatever you say it is? Well, no, because every other fucking game franchise does the same thing. Sure, Breath of the Wild has Link and Zelda and some dungeons, but it's still not the same as a traditional Zelda game, and is its own subset. Mario quite literally split itself into Continues from Galaxy and Continues from 64, and those are honestly just some examples I could think of while writing this at 6 AM. I mean, you could also, like, bring up Metroid compared to Metroid Prime. You know, they're not the same, but that's like a whole different dimension. You can also make the argument that because these aren't classic games, they don't have to follow the same formula as them. But fuck you, why did they try so hard to emulate them then? Right down to fucking shitty special stages. And that's where my personal Pepe Sylvia tier conspiracy board comes into play. I made this because, well, I'm clinically insane and my ass needs to get my dumbass thoughts out there through confusing flowcharts. If this was the 1800s, I'd have been killed already for my crimes against humanity. See, I have decided with my big brain that any Dims game doesn't actually follow Sonic 3K. It follows Sonic 2 and branched off into its own subset of mediocre spin-offs, and I personally like to call this Generation 1.5, Dims. You know, Generation 1 is 2D games, Generation 2 is 3D games, and Generation 3 is Sonic Frontiers and what's going to come afterwards. You know, like Kishimoto calls it Generation 3, so I kind of like splitting them up like that. So, as you can see on the image, you know, Sonic CD splits off of Sonic the Hedgehog 1, Sonic the Hedgehog 1 continues into 2, into 3, into Mania, but Sonic the Hedgehog 2 splits off into Sonic Advance, because I feel like Dims looked at Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and went from there, because a lot of stuff that was in Sonic 3 and Knuckles is missing on a handheld console that should be able to do pretty much the same thing as a Mega Drive. I'm not sure on the specifics, but you can also notice that I said that Sonic 4 splits off of Sonic Advance, and that's because I hate Sonic 4. I hate Episode 1 more than Episode 2, but it's still trash fire. But as you can see, Sonic Advance leads into Sonic Advance 2, which leads into Advance 3, which leads into Rush, which leads into Rush Adventure, into Colors DS, into Generations 3DS, and then Lost World 3DS, but, like, we can ignore that because it's Lost World 3DS. It's probably the worst, like, fucking handheld game they've ever made. I also kind of split Sonic Rush off into Sonic Unleashed, and when we get to my Generation 2.5 and my Generation 2.8, it gets a little weird, and, like, honestly, I think I went a little too far in places, but, like, I can discuss that some other point, maybe. God, I hate Sonic Colors. Also, small note, I'm not counting Unleashed, because, it's god-awful. I can say that because I played the PS2 version before I got my hands on a PS3, because we were a poor family, and by that I mean Daddy just wouldn't buy a PS3 until he did. But point being, that game's bad, and Dims helped it, so Dims bad. What was I saying? None of these games have what would have truly been a Sonic the Hedgehog 4. I will give credit where credit is due. Sonic Advance 3's team-up mechanic did introduce and incentivize going back to acts with different combos to find other secrets, like routes that can only be accessed with a power character. The stages are also much larger than Sonic Advance 1 and 2, but it still has the same issues as them, and really, any Dims game. But, again, credit where credit is due, this does build off of the Sonic and Tails, or Knuckles and Knuckles, or Knuckles and Tails, or Sonic and Knuckles combos that they kinda were doing back in the day, you know? Now, side note, it is a shame they didn't try any cool team-up gimmicks for Sonic Rush and Sonic Rush Adventure. Having something like Advance 3's team-up gimmick, depending if Blaze or Sonic was team leader, would have been pretty fucking cool. Who knows though, maybe that would have happened in a potential Sonic Rush 3, Rush Engines, or... That's not a fucking word. Okay, so what about Mania? Isn't that Sonic 4 and everything but name? Well, it's Sonic 4 in the same way that Sonic 06 is Sonic Adventure 3, or Sonic Heroes is Sonic Adventure 3, or Shadow the Hedgehog is... Sure, the ingredients are all there, and it's all mixed into a perfect, beautiful dish of delicious Sonic goodness, and then when Ray and Mighty come in, and Encore mode adds even more acts, and it's just... But it's not Sonic 4. It's a continuation of the story to an extent as far as classic games went, but it's held back by a lack of original stages, something Sonic 4 also lacked. what's there is great, and both original and returning stages are so good, you kind of forget about it being an anniversary game and just enjoy the experience. But it's not Sonic the Hedgehog 4. Even if this had stayed a Sonic Discovery and a small 4-stage game, I'd also say that while very, very close, it wouldn't be Sonic 4. And, of course, most recently, there's Sonic Superstars. I think my feelings on that were pretty clear in my review video, but just for recap, Sonic Superstars is a middling mess and missing a lot of what made Sonic Mania charming. It was a decent attempt, but it is nowhere near what a true Sonic 4 should be. And I just think it's crazy that it took over 20 years to get a game that even got close to feeling like a true successor to the classic games, and even then, it's not really that. I don't know, maybe I'm just being too anal for my sake. But I'm still holding out hope that one day we will finally get the true Sonic 4 as we did really truly imagine it. And no, I will never let that quote go. It was stupid, and Sega should be reminded of that until they go bankrupt, or I burn them down. Also, if anybody from Sega is listening, if you guys release a Sonic Superstars Plus DLC for like $30, and all it has is like fixes that should have been in the base game, and maybe Fang, and some weird like limited edition DLC skins for pre-order bonus, like apparently a shadow that's been data mined, I am coming to burn down your studios. There's nothing you can do or say. Well, I don't know, there's a lot you can do or say, I'm not sure yet. I don't follow through on a lot of these ideas. And remember that despite how mid Sonic Superstars really was, it is still miles better than whatever the fuck Dims has put out.